Every day, 34 people in their 20s and 30s are diagnosed with cancer.
On the 7th of July 2015, I was one of the 34.
On the 28th of August 2008, I was one of the 34.
But in Series 2, we're going younger.
We're teaming up with Teenage Cancer Trust to bring you 7 new storytellers.
As 7 13 to 24-year-olds are diagnosed every day.
So, Series 2 focuses on them.
These are the stories of what happens afterwards.
This is AfterThoughts.
The teenage years.
Hello, Alice.
Bonjour.
All right, here we are again. We are right in the depths of AfterThoughts recording, aren't we?
Well, the other day I said we were knee deep. I'd say we're probably maybe stomach deep.
Stomach deep
in AfterThoughts storytelling recording.
Yeah, I think so, and it's a wonderful place to be. And how is the recording going for you?
Oh, it's been great. I was reflecting actually this morning, and I did tweet it. How brilliant this last week has been. So we've recorded 6 episodes in a week. We've got a couple more to come. And yeah, I've just been absolutely blown away by our storytellers. And they say, I just think young people have such a bad reputation, right? But all of the young people I've encountered are amazing. And I genuinely think if our future is in the hands of these people, then we're all going to be okay.
Unfortunately, we would have screwed over the world and our country before then, but let's not get too political.
Right.
Alice, though, I have to ask you about your tweet. I saw your tweet earlier, and I saw amazing things you said about all these storytellers, but no mention of anything about your co-host.
I tagged you in it.
You tagged me in it, but you gave so many lovely things you said about these storytellers and spending time with them, but absolutely nothing about spending time with me.
Dude, it's not all about you. Jeez.
I'm very upset. If I'm honest.
It's not all about you. The song, I know the song is "It's All About You," but it's not all about you, Toby.
I was heartbroken. I just thought, just a little word, just to say I've had a lovely time with Toby. As ever.
All right, fine. I'll do an extra tweet today to say Toby Peach is great. I've had a great time recording with him, and I'm not saying this under duress at all.
Well, now I know that is fake. I don't want it at all.
Let's talk about today's guest.
So we had Gloria on today.
The brilliant Gloria. Fantastic.
A really different perspective as well today, because we have heard from a number of teenagers, and today we are talking to Gloria, who is 24 now and is reflecting back at the fact that she was diagnosed when she was 14. So she is just coming up to 10 years. Was it 14 or she was 13?
No, she was 14. So she's coming up to 10 years in December. I think this perspective is so important. We've talked a lot to people who have been younger and have cancer experiences, and I think that's absolutely crucial and vital to be having those conversations. But I thought it was great to have Gloria on to provide comfort and hope to anyone who might be going through cancer at the moment at the age of sort of 14 or 15 or whatever. I thought it would be really amazing for them to see someone who'd been where they are now, where Gloria is now. So should we jump on in?
Let's jump on in.
Hello and welcome back to AfterThoughts. Toby, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Alice. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks, and super excited. Very pumped to have Gloria with us today.
Hi, guys.
How are you, Gloria?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well. We are excited to have you here. So what we like to do when we start AfterThoughts, because we care about the person before the cancer, we like to start with a few kind of informal, sometimes quick fire questions, just to get to know you before we start talking about your cancer. So I am going to kick off and ask you, what pronouns you use?
My pronouns are she, her.
Who do people say that you look like, Gloria?
Oh, this is such a tricky question. I have no idea. I feel like people just say I look like an exact copy of my dad. Um, I recently downloaded this face app thing, and it was like, what would you look like as a man? And I thought, oh yeah, I'd be pretty. Like, I'd back myself. I think I'd probably be all right. I switched it around, and I was like, I just look like my dad. Like, I mean, all right, I guess that's it then. So yeah,
hilarious.
I think my dad.
When I had no hair, my dad also, he shaved off, he doesn't have much hair anyway, but he shaved off all his hair and shaved off his beard in like solidarity with me. And then that was when face swap was really big, and we did face swap and we just looked exactly the same. Like, it was so bad. But hilarious. Anyway, if you could be a toy, any toy, what toy would you be?
Ooh. Oh my goodness, that's a really tricky one. I don't know. A toy. Maybe. Oh gosh, this is really tricky. It's taking me so long to think about a toy. I don't think I've played with a toy in ages, but maybe like Barney. I used to have a Barney toy when I was younger, and it was incredible. Like it was massive as well. I think it just filled up the corner of my room, and I just hug it every day. So maybe just a Barney, because you're just a purple dinosaur that's just very friendly and have loads of catchy songs.
Yeah, I was going to say, and Barney has a theme song, so brilliant, great stuff.
What would you say? What would you want to be?
Oh well, we'll have to wait and see.
We're holding off that answer until we do our wrap up episode. We're teasing the thoughts. Alice and I have discussed it once, but then we've been hearing such great answers. It's a case of going, maybe it'll be something else when we do it.
I stand with my original answer, and Gloria, you'll just have to wait and see.
Gloria, what's your favourite biscuit?
Oh, favourite biscuit? Biscoff. I love a Biscoff. The Biscoff spread.
Oh, so you're the second person who said Biscoff.
Oh, really?
I don't remember who the first one was, but was it Caitlin? But she hadn't had the Biscoff spread. And I was like, dude, you need to sort that out. If you had a teleporter and could teleport to anywhere in the world, where would you choose?
Oh,
like right now?
Right now. So actually, before lockdown happened, I went to Jordan, and I went. My friends and I, we went camping in Wadi Rum one night, and the tour guide took us out in the middle of the night to just sit in the desert, and it was like it was utter silence, and it was darkness, and you could just really I don't know, hear yourself think, and it was a really nice space just to chill out and just relax for a bit. So I would probably do that right now if I could.
Oh, what a great answer.
Lovely. Gloria, what's your go-to dish, either to make or to just eat?
Okay. If I were to make one, it would be like a veggie pot pie, or like something really hearty, but if it's something to take out, it's always Indian. I love Indian.
Great shout. The most divisive question of the series, I think, so far: cat or dog?
See, and anytime anyone asks me this question, I'm torn, because I have two god cats. So so I want to say cat, but I just love dogs. So it's like 60-40 dog cat. But my god cats do have a really, really special place in my heart.
What are the names of your god cats?
So it's Olive and Oscar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great names.
Love
Magnificent.
Gloria, if you could give us a short introduction to your cancer diagnosis, the age when you were diagnosed and your age now, and what type of treatment you had, that'd be great.
Sure. I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia when I was 14, just about to turn 15. and I had 4 rounds of chemotherapy and then a bone marrow transplant. I am now 24, so it's been 10 years on from when it first happened. So it feels very strange to talk about it because it feels weirdly close, but also really distant, if that makes sense.
Always my follow-up question when somebody's had a transplant. Did you use your own stem cells or somebody else's?
No, it was someone else's. So I am originally from Hong Kong and my parents were from Hong Kong. So we needed someone that had like East Asian descent to find a closer match to me. And so it was actually really funny. My parents and I always joke about this, where the person who donated their bone marrow, they were a firefighter. And we found out that they were they were male as well. And so we always joke about how, because of the bone marrow, my voice is now a lot lower than it was before. But yeah, it was from overseas, which was phenomenal that they managed to find someone that could donate. Yeah.
So first up on Afterthoughts, we always start with a story about beyond the diagnosis. So often the stories that people are asked to retell all the time are that of the moment of diagnosis. And we want to highlight some of those stories that follow. So this is our section where we get to hear something that has happened after that moment. So Gloria, over to you for Beyond the Diagnosis.
So something I think for me is reflecting on my journey 10 years on. I was diagnosed when I was 14 and I have just turned 24, and I was diagnosed in December. So it is coming up to my 10-year cancerversary. And so just a bit of backstory, my parents were living overseas in Hong Kong at the time. So when I was diagnosed, I was over in the UK, and they couldn't fly over in time. And so I was on my own for the first bit of my diagnosis. And I was put in the Teenage Cancer Trust, and a wonderful youth coordinator called Zoe came, and she was like always there for me, chatted with me. And when I was 14, I didn't really realize anything about I didn't really know what mental health was. I didn't really know what anything beyond my diagnosis. I was like, okay, I'm ill, that's it, like we can just fight that. But then with time, I found that actually my mental health, I just started feeling really, really sad and negative about everything. And she was always there for me to chat to, and the nurses on the wards were so lovely, and they were always really open. And so it really then I think that moment really influenced me, because then I went on to university, and I became just more passionate about bringing more conversation about mental health, and encouraging more people to talk about it. And so I think that definitely led me into the career path that I am, because I currently work in the mental health sector, just because I feel like it's something that is so important and on par with physical health that people often forget about. And I didn't know about it when I was younger until I started talking about it and realizing that actually those emotions that I was feeling that was really pent up was actually a result of my poor mental health. And so I think definitely if I wasn't diagnosed, it wouldn't really have been the path I would have gone down. I think my parents were trying to push for me to go into accountancy or something that's a bit more reliable, as they say. But I think it's taken some time for me to just talk to them and make them realize that actually this is something that I really want to pursue further. I don't know where and how, but it is an area that I want to continue exploring. I've never celebrated a cancerversary before, because I think beforehand, I think definitely. So growing up, I was really embarrassed. I don't know if that's the right word, but I never really wanted people to know that I had cancer, because at school, when I was diagnosed with cancer, everyone at school knew, and I was, the girl with cancer, or the girl that had cancer, and you could kind of tell from, my bald head, and I was wearing a hat all the time, and it's a very small bubble. So once I, went to university, I didn't want anyone to know. And so I never celebrated it. I never really talked about it. And I've done that, since, being diagnosed, because I'm just like, I just want to keep it to myself. I don't want people to think of me as that person, because the minute they think you're that cancer girl, that's all you are. And then I think as I started, growing and developing, just becoming more into myself and just finding other passions and other things that I'm passionate about, I've just realized that actually it doesn't really matter, and I should talk about it, and I should be able to celebrate it, because it's a big achievement for me, and also a big like, what's the word I'm trying to find? So it's like a big reason for me to use 10 years to thank all my friends and my family for being there with me for 10 years. So yeah, I haven't celebrated it before, which is why I thought this would be a really good way to do so.
The next section of Afterthoughts, the teenage years today, is those around us. And, cancer happens to an individual. It happens to a lot of us. But we know that it impacts and influences a lot of other people beyond the patient. So, Gloria, we would love to hear a story of those around us from you.
Yeah, of course. I think this dates back to the day I was diagnosed. I remember that day so vividly. It was a Wednesday, and I had been feeling a bit off a few days before. I wasn't able to walk up a flight of stairs, and I was like, okay, something's really off. So I went to our nurse, and she took me to go get a blood test in the morning. And in the afternoon, I was told that something was wrong and I needed to go to the hospital. And at the time, my parents were living overseas, so my nurse took me into hospital, and we flew down the highway in an ambulance, and we went down, and they basically told me that I had acute myeloid leukemia, and at that point I just was completely caught off guard, and I just didn't really know what to do, and I didn't really know what they meant. I didn't really understand everything they were saying. All I remember vividly was holding this jello in front of me, being like, I just want to go home. So then because they were using lots of really big words, and I didn't really get it. And the minute they said cancer, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to ring my mum. And so my nurse was really understanding, and she was like, okay, well, we can figure this out. And I think I was really thankful that the hospital managed to do it so quickly, where they found a translator, because I usually speak to my parents in Cantonese, and I not with that much problem, but with something that serious, with all these medical jargon, I was like, I don't know what to say. And I think I was really shocked at that point. And so they managed to find a translator, and the hospital kindly just rang my parents. I just gave them the details, and they just rang them through the translator and explained the situation to them, which again, like, just thinking back, I get chills, because I'm like, they did everything and beyond to help me with my situation. So that's how I told them. Well, that's how they found out, really. But my nurse was there the whole time, and she was with me up until my parents came, which was a few weeks later. And it really made me recognize just the community that I had, because my nurses and my teachers, they all came and like did shifts to look after me and just be by my side if I wanted to chat. They bought cards and lots of games just to keep me occupied. And then once I was in Birmingham, I was moved into the Teenage Cancer Trust. And that's when I also got to meet my youth coordinator, Zoe. And she was so lovely the minute I met her. She was so friendly, and she gave me a laptop. And it was just something so little, but she was like, hey, here's a laptop for you to use to just connect with your friends, and just to be able to like keep in touch with everyone. And she was always there if you wanted to chat, and she'd always pop in. And somehow always remembered our previous conversation, and it made me felt really heard and listened to, because I was like, okay, she really cares. And And so I was really thankful for that, because in the moments where my nurses and my teachers weren't visiting, she would pop her head round and it just make me feel less lonely. And then when eventually some of my friends got to come, I was really nervous to begin with, because I started losing my hair and I just didn't really want them to see me that way. But all of them were just so good at handling it, and I can't even imagine what it would have been like from their point of view, because they were also only 14. So to see a friend go through that and still have so much empathy, it's just something that blows my mind on the daily. But they were so friendly, and they just kept reassuring me. They were like, you can take your hat off, like you don't need to hide from us, we're here for you, we're not really, we don't care what you look like. And it made me realize from having my nurses and my teachers and having Zoe and my friends around, that despite my parents not being there at the time, I had built a really strong community. And it was really lovely to then tell my parents about what they did, because then they felt a lot more reassured that people were with me and I was surrounded by really good people. I haven't seen Zoe in a while. I think if I did see her today, I just I don't know, it'd be really weird. I would just say, like, thank you so much. I mean, maybe she does, but she had made such a big impact in my life that I just want to say a massive thank you, and then maybe just like bake her loads of cakes. Just shower her with cakes.
The next section of Afterthoughts is to really shine a light on some of the invisible impacts of cancer. We know so often that there are things that are left that perhaps others won't see unless you have gone through an experience like that. So invisible impacts is an opportunity to showcase some of those. So Gloria, over to you for invisible impacts.
Mm-hmm. Sure. One invisible impact I had, I guess, was just realizing that having the cancer diagnosis made me different, different from my peers on another level. So I am Chinese, and I think going to school, I had already struggled with just my cultural identity, because I was surrounded by peers who were Caucasian, and I felt that I was very out of place. And so when I was told that I had cancer, to me as a 14-year-old, I just felt very overwhelmed, because I was like, oh my goodness, now I have another label associated to me, and it made me feel so different from everyone else. And I didn't really talk about it, and I kept that bottled up, and it wasn't healthy, but I just didn't feel like I could talk about it to someone who didn't understand, or it might make people think that I was overthinking, and just all that kind of stuff, you internally think to yourself. And so I remember having a really brief conversation with Zoe, the youth coordinator, about how I was feeling, because she was very big on asking you how you were feeling. And I think it got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to tell someone about this. So I talked to her, and she was like, okay, have you ever considered counseling? Which is something I had never considered before. It's a big taboo within the Asian community, because if you seek counseling, that means you have a really big problem, when that isn't necessarily the truth. I think it's just having the right outlet to be able to talk about your feelings without judgment, and with someone that can understand. And so she recommended counseling, and I agreed to it. And it might have just been by accident, or maybe it was on purpose, but I met my counselor, who came to see me a couple of days later, and he was of Asian descent. I think when he walked in, I didn't really have a strong feeling, because I didn't really know what we were going to be talking about. And I think actually when I first saw him, I was a little bit fearful, because I was like, oh, okay, he is, from a similar background as I am. What if that is I know rationally, I know that it wouldn't have been the problem, because he is a counselor. But I was like, what if he gets offended, or what if he thinks what I'm saying is completely wrong. But I think when we sat down, he was very reassuring. And the minute I started talking about things that were affecting me from a cultural point of view, he was really understanding. And I think that's when I really felt appreciative that he was from an Asian descent, because I felt that he understood me more than maybe someone of a different background would have. And I didn't realize how important that would be, because when I started talking about how I was feeling, he was really good at empathizing and understanding where I was coming from a cultural perspective, because I think I got really upset at one point asking him, talking to him and being really embarrassed that I was seeking or talking to a counselor, and he was like, it is understandable. And that is within the Asian community, that is something that we need, that shouldn't be such a big taboo, but I'm glad we talked about it. And our conversations were really, really honest. And I think that was really helpful for me, because then I wasn't ashamed, and he helped me really find ways to get rid of that mindset. And I continued seeing him for a while, as it was just something that they recommended, and it was so valuable to just helping me through that cancer diagnosis or beyond cancer diagnosis.
Now we're diving into our next section of Afterthoughts, Teenage Kicks. We're not talking about the Undertones song. In fact, we want to hear from our storytellers some of their experiences that happened to them as a result of cancer that wouldn't necessarily have happened to their peers. So over to you, Gloria, for your story on Teenage Kicks.
When I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, there is one, and I don't know if this is too rough, but it's losing a friend that also had cancer.
I think that's really important, and if you're comfortable to talk about
it. When I first met Stephen, I think I had been in the teenage cancer ward for about 3 weeks, and I was doing my daily exercise, walking into the lounge with the Wii and jukebox and all that kind of stuff, and I saw a new face. And when you see a new face, you immediately are like, oh, new person, new friend. So I popped over and I just went to say hi, and I was like, how are you? I'm Gloria, and just introduced myself. Weirdly enough, I never asked for his age, but I think he was probably around 15, 16. And so we actually we talked for a little bit, but then we just played a few games of Wii, and we just bonded being teenagers, because I think when you're a teen, you don't really talk. You just kind of hang out, and you just kind of play, and you'll just chat here, there, and everywhere. But he was a really lovely guy, and every time I saw him in the ward, we'd always catch up and just talk about how things have been. And we developed a great friendship, and we went to Find Your Sense of Humor together, that Teenage Cancer Trust runs, and it was really nice just to get to know other peers that also had cancer. And then a couple of years later, we found out that his cancer was terminal, and so he was doing all the different challenges and everything that he wanted to do. For example, tattooing a Smurf underneath his armpit as armpit hair, and I was like, oh, that's so weird but also brilliant. And then we found out that his condition got worse, and he eventually did pass away. But so that was really difficult to deal with, because we met when we were going through it together, and just seeing how different the outcomes were really put a big spanner in the works, because I was like, oh my, you never think you would experience a death of a friend that young, and you just don't really know how to cope with it. I think that experience just made me realize how how unpredictable life can be. And so I always live by that motto, quality over quantity. And the friends and just the people that I keep around me, they're all really good eggs. And every time I talk about them, I just have like the biggest smile on my face. And it just makes me really, really appreciate the friendships that I have and the family that surrounds me. So I think that was a big takeaway from that. I think when you're younger, you see all the people at school and they're like really popular and they have like tons and tons of friends, and you're just like, I want to be exactly like them. And not that that's like there's anything wrong with that, but I think when I went through it, I was like, okay, I need to really like nurture these friendships and make them as good and like equally like, you know, as beneficial and helpful and supportive as it can be.
So our next section is to look at lost conversations. So we always bring this section up because we think it's really important to find out what are the conversations that our storytellers want to highlight. What is it that they feel that we should be talking more about in the cancer community? So Gloria, we're going to pass over to you for lost conversations and your story.
Great, thank you. So personally, something that I feel like should be talked about more is the association of having cancer. When I was told I got cancer, I remember just after the initial shock being like, I don't want to be known as the girl with cancer. I don't want people to know about this because then they will think that I am just the girl with cancer and nothing beyond. And so I kept that part of me very, very hidden. So much so that when conversations came up about you know, a serious diagnosis or a cancer diagnosis with friends. So like at university, if we were having a chat and something like that came up, I would get up, I'd step away, or I'd stay very, very silent, and which is very unlike me because I'm a massive chatterbox. And so instantly I would just feel myself shut down because I just wasn't comfortable. And people at uni didn't know me as the girl that had cancer. And so I never talked about it. And even like when I was then working afterwards, if conversations ever came up, I would refuse to talk about it. And inside, I felt as though I was not sharing a big part of who I am, but also wanting to hide that side of me so that people don't look at me differently. But then, you know, having these thoughts and feelings, I had to have a way to let it out. And so I told the friends that I had when I was younger that went through the cancer with me. And I remember talking to one of my friends about it last year and saying that I feel really conflicted because I feel like I should share this with some of my friends because it, you know, there are certain times, like when it comes to August, especially right up to the day that I was diagnosed, I can be a bit emotional and my body can feel it. And I feel like then I have to make up lots of different excuses to say that I'm feeling this way because of this other thing, rather than just telling them I'm feeling this way because this was the day I was diagnosed and all that kind of stuff. And so my friend was like, well, why don't you talk about it? Like, why are you ashamed about that? Because it shouldn't be something that you would be like ashamed or embarrassed by. And I was like, that, you know, when someone puts something really simply across to you and you're like, what? Like, have I really been overcomplicating all of this stuff? And I thought about it and I was like, okay, well, if I'm happy to talk about my mental health, why can't I then talk about something that also affected me? Because it plays into my mental health and it plays into the person that I am today. And so from that point on, you know, not that I would deliberately start telling people, but I'd just be like, okay, well, this is me and this happened. And just being very frank and being like, I didn't tell anyone before because I didn't want judgment. And that is why. And people that I have told have been just very understanding. And, you know, they just want to learn more. And after that, I realized that actually there was nothing, like, I shouldn't have hidden it for so long. And there was nothing really to fear. And so, yeah, I think that was something that I've been keeping for a long time, but now that it's coming up to 10 years, I'm like, I need to use these 10 years and just reflect on what I've learned and talk about it, and hopefully just share that it's all right to talk about these things, and it doesn't really matter what other people think, because it's your journey, and it's your journey, it's your story. No, it's nice to hear from different perspectives.
Yes, girl. Yes. I feel like I just want to be like, yeah. Snaps. Final section of Afterthoughts is Don't Laugh, which is about the funny things that happen when you go through cancer treatment, because there are funny things. Because while it's bleak, while it's stressful, while it's can be pretty dark at times, all of those words are probably an understatement, there are funny sides to cancer as well. So Gloria, we would love to hear your funny story for this section, Don't Laugh.
All right. The funny story that I thought of was when I got after getting my bone marrow transplant, you have to be in isolation. And that meant that I was just in the room by myself for about 2 weeks. And I was so bored out of my mind. I didn't know what else to do. I was just watching Britain's Got Talent the whole time. And so I think I just got to a point where I just ran out of things to do. So I decided to cut my hair. And I was like, yeah, this is the perfect time for it. And just a quick, update. I wasn't able to eat at that time, so I had a feeding tube like in through my nose, and it was just tucked around my ear. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to cut my hair. But I couldn't get to my mirror because I was like hooked to all these different IVs, because it was like 11 o'clock at night. So I was like, right, I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to do it. And I really wanted a fringe. So I was like, okay, yeah. So I just set out my hair like up to my front, and I started chopping and cutting. And then all of a sudden, I felt like, just, I don't know, like drips like going down me. And I was like, what's happening? So I turned on my light, and somehow I had cut my feeding tube whilst cutting my hair, like as I was cutting my layers, thinking that I was like an absolute pro. And so I was like, I had all this hair like on my side table, and just my feeding tube just like still liquid coming out. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to call the nurse. Like I don't know how to explain this. It's 11 o'clock and there's hair and just like food just mixed around. And I was like, okay, here we go. So then I rang the nurse, and she came in, and she was like, what? And I was like, I don't know, but like, what do you think of my hair? Because that was the only thing I had in mind. So she was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, the hair is awful. Oh God. And so then we had to just pause, and she took the scissors away from me. She was like, you are not touching these scissors ever again, because that is like, I don't know what you were thinking. And she put a new feeding tube in, and she was like, yeah, that's it for you. Like, we'll bring you in a puzzle just to like keep you occupied, because cutting your hair and your feeding tube is probably not the best thing to do during this time. So yeah, that was the like slight amusing thing that happened. And
Gloria, the thing that like, there was the moment in that story when you said, oh yeah, and I turned the light on, which shows that you didn't have the light on. You were cutting your hair in the dark
without a mirror.
Without a mirror.
11 p.m. at night.
11 p.m. at night on a ward. And I just there's just this moment of imagining you just sat there and you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to cut my hair. Don't give her a scissors. Who's giving her scissors?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I've heard of bad haircuts, like when like my nephew decided when he was like 6 decided to take some blunt scissors to his fringe. And I mean, that was bad enough, but doing it in a hospital at 11 o'clock at night in the dark and accidentally snipping your NG tube, that's a bad day at the office, isn't it?
There was like, when you mentioned your food tube, I was like, oh, please don't do what I think you're gonna do. And then like Oh God, it's just like, yeah.
And obviously the listeners can't see us, but there were times there when Toby and I were both like fully hands over faces, like, oh God, we can see where this is going. And it's like a car crash. I can't stop listening. But also it was hilarious. So what what a brilliant note to end on.
Yeah, that is it for another episode of Afterthoughts. And Gloria, thank you for finishing us off with a I'd say, I mean, we are getting close to Halloween, and that feels like the scariest funny story in a way of going. I can just imagine like your hair all down, and then like your running all over you as well.
The nurse, can you imagine the nurse when she came in? She must have just been like
a horror
what
show, yeah.
Yeah.
hell have I just walked into?
I didn't even try to explain. I was like, I feel like this is pretty self-explanatory.
Oh, Gloria, it's been such a joy to have you on, especially like for that last story alone. It was just brilliant. But you've been such a fantastic storyteller, and I'm going to put words in Toby's mouth and say we have both loved having you here.
You put words in my mouth, but that's okay.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a blast.
So there we had it. That was Gloria. Thank you so much, Gloria, for coming on and sharing your stories. Fantastic stuff, Alice.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. At the end of one of Gloria's stories, when she was talking about the shame that she felt around her diagnosis and how now she's embracing like what that did to her and how it changed her, I just wanted to stand up and give her a round of applause, a standing ovation. I mean, I did.
You did. You actually did do that. It's just that we probably couldn't put that into the podcast, but we'll find out if we did.
Right, TBC. But I just thought how amazing it was to hear Gloria talk about that shame that she carried and how she's kind of managed to sort of start throwing off that burden. And, I think we all carry a lot of shame for various reasons, especially relating to cancer. I know I do. And yeah, I just thought it was wonderful to hear her say that.
Can we also just go back to right at the start of the fact of her telling us about the fact that she has stem cells? And you know what I'm like, Alice, about stem cells. Like, I love to hear a bone marrow stem cell donor story. Can't get enough of it. And the fact that she had her donor was a firefighter, a male firefighter who was from Hong Kong. Yeah. So they came all the way over. These stem cells were sent all the way over. How incredible is that?
It's amazing. And it just shows like the power of science, I think, and just how universal health is in a way.
So Alice, let's get into it. Let's hear your afterthoughts on today's episode.
My afterthoughts on today's episode of Afterthoughts are how important representation is again. Like whenever we talk about this, and we talked about it a bit in series 1, and we've talked about it a bit in series 2 as well, but representation is so important. And, it's easy for us to sit here as white, cisgender, I'm a woman, you're not. And like, we see the people who look like us in counseling rooms, on hospital wards and on TV, and we hear about them in podcasts and stuff. And I just think what Gloria was saying about finding a counsellor who had such a good understanding of her cultural clashes and internal battles, I just thought that was absolutely crucial. And I'm so glad that Gloria found that. And I hope that we can do our best to help other people find that, perhaps like kind of on an individual level and on a community and societal level as well. Toby, what about you? What's your afterthoughts on this episode of Afterthoughts?
Well, I've been kind of reflecting on Gloria talking about Stephen and the thought about of when we lose somebody who was a friend through treatment, or somebody that we half knew, like post-treatment, or something you've met, and then like there are so many people that cancer affects. And I think when I think about Stephen and her talking about him, it was so funny when she mentioned his name, and I was like, oh yeah, like Stephen did have quite an impact on me. Like I've never met Stephen at all, but have met his parents, and that seeing him tell his story was one of the things that gave me permission to tell mine. And I think I've always thought about that. And when I've had the opportunity to tell my story, the hope that it could do what he did for me. And so I really hope that through hearing stories and afterthoughts, it gives permission to other listeners and people who are going through different experiences to say that we want to hear stories. We need to hear these stories. They need to be shared. They need to be passed on so that others can also hear them and feel that energy that comes from hearing something that you relate to.
100%. And yeah, I mean, I just completely agree. And I think that is the perfect note to end on this evening.
Indeed, the perfect note to end on. So thank you so much, everybody who's been listening today and to all of the other episodes so far.
Yep, thank you so much. And we will see you or
soon.
Be in your ears next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. If today's episode of Afterthoughts has brought up any thoughts or feelings that you'd like to speak to somebody about, we really recommend grabbing a cuppa with a friend or dropping them a message on WhatsApp. There are also tons of charities out there who can help you if you've been through cancer and need a bit of extra psychological support. Thanks so much to Teenage Cancer Trust for supporting Afterthoughts, the teenage years, and supporting teens and young adults diagnosed with cancer in the UK. The work they do is incredible. Find out more at teenagecancertrust.org. Afterthoughts is produced by Alice May Purkiss and Toby Peach from Beyond Arts, with sound design by Kieran Lucas.